Welcome to the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, is Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just finished watching Lakers Pelicans. Exciting ending. Like it was looking a little bleak there in the first half. Lakers took a big lead and the Pelicans stormed back. It was fun. We can get into it. How's your time how's your time in this last week of the NBA been? We haven't talked in over a week. I was sick, but I'm back now, feeling good, feeling strong. So, how was your time with the NBA?
As a Raptors fan, I'm glad it's over.
A tougher one.
It's it gets to be more exciting now, in my opinion, because it becomes the great what ifs. I'm a big off-season guy. I love, what teams do. That's why I love the trade deadline. I love the draft. What can they do? How can they roster build? How can they, angle for Cooper Flag next year?
Yeah.
Because this year's draft, you'll get a guy, but like you won't get the guy.
He
You
won't
won't
get
get
the
him.
changer.
Yeah.
You're not getting him with this one.
No.
A guy who was him though tonight against the Lakers was Zion, who he exited early. How much did he finish with? I think he was in the 40s.
I think he got 40. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was on a roll near the end there. Like he was dunk after dunk, lob after lob, layup after layup, bulldozing into guys. It was looking like the Zion that we were like promised as a first round pick. How have you felt about the Pels this year, in general? They're heading into their second playing game now. They're gonna have to play their second playing game since they've lost this first one. They were in the playoffs for majority of the year. They're hovering around that 4, 5, 6 seed for most of the year, and then at the end there's a little bit of slippage. Plus, some of those teams at the back end, like Dallas, and so start to creep up, play a lot better after the trade deadline. But now they're looking at a second elimination game, and that's kind of unfortunate for the story of their season. So, how has the Pelicans' outlook looked for you?
Oh, I guess it all depends on Zion right now, right? We haven't yet heard why he went to the locker room. He was not a happy camper when he went to the locker room. Because as you said, like he was playing unbelievably. If New Orleans was going to win this game, it was going to be because of Zion Williamson. He was frankly awesome. And on a day that Blake Griffin retired, the last hyper athletic big power forward that could dominate games, it was really like heartening to see Zion do this and be this player that we knew he could be. And you asked about how they've been all season. I think the story of New Orleans season is the way Zion played into the year. There was something about the NBA Cup that he clearly he took personally. He dropped a lot of weight. He started playing unbelievably the way that like we know he could play. He looked like the Zion from Duke. And hopefully whatever happens, in the next game, if he plays or not, he carries this chip on his shoulder. And the heartbreak about Blake Griffin was his health and the way that his body did break down on him, because peak Blake Griffin was
unbelievable.
Yeah, he was Showtime, as they like to say.
Yeah. Poor Mozgov.
And Zion can be that guy, and we want him to be that guy. We want him to be that guy for like a whole generation of fans, of kids, of people who love the NBA, who love dunking. So I'm just concerned about him. I want him to be okay. I hope it's just a minor tweak. I hope they just like ice the heck out of his like ankle or knee or whatever it is. It's just minor inflammation, and he can put up another 40 spot in the next game and carry New Orleans properly into the playoffs.
Yeah, this is a rough one, especially because Zion's hurt. or potentially hurt. We have to, as you said, we'll hear a word by the time we finish this podcast. Like if there's anything more to what the Zion news, but also Alvarado, he went down twice with twisting his ankle, so you don't know if that's going to swell up. And this is the tricky thing with like these single elimination games, and you get yourself in a playing game. Don't solidify yourself as a 6 seed. Anything can happen in that first game, and then now you're going to put yourself in a tough position against. You'll be at home, but you're going to be in a tough game probably against either the Warriors or the Kings, who are two quality opponents. Again, no walkover at all. So that's gonna be rough. I think on the other hand of this equation, there was Brandon Ingram. That the duo there, Zion and Ingram have been the two guys. And this one is a bit rough for Brandon Ingram. He shot 4-12 for 33%. He only played 24 minutes, so I'm not sure if he also got a little banged up there as well. He wasn't closing, but as we look at the box, like he wasn't playing too well, and as I was watching, he wasn't doing too much as well either. But he's had this pretty good year. Like he's averaging 26 and 5. Solid. He's become like a better playmaker increasingly as he's had to play with Zion and in portions having to play without Zion. He's been able to take that load. So what do you make of this Brandon Ingram and how it moves forward? Because if they do end up dropping this next game, let's say Zion's not there and they're not full health, I think it becomes an interesting predicament that New Orleans kind of sees themselves going into this offseason with.
Yeah, I think Brandon Ingram, unfortunately will be the question in the story of New Orleans offseason. And it's funny because like last offseason there was rumors that like Zion was available and that Brandon Ingram was gonna like be this team's guy.
Yeah.
And it's funny what a year can do. It really is.
It really is. Yeah.
And maybe like these are two really good players, two very, really good players. And they've shown that they can play together, but maybe they're just not the perfect pairing.
Yeah.
And so it'll be a question of what New Orleans wants to do to like level up. 2 years ago, this is basically the New Orleans team that we saw. A very like mid playoffs
Playing sort of around.
right?
Yeah.
And it just kind of like they keep running it back, like, they'll be better next year. And it's like, no, you're going to need to make some personnel changes. You're going to have to change up the mix, and you're going to have to find a way to propel yourself into the next stratosphere, if you will, right? Like if you want to compete with Denver, if you want to compete with OKC now, if you want to compete with a Timberwolves team that is really working,
Dallas, all these
Dallas,
teams.
You're going to have to do something.
Yeah. You can't stand Pat no more. Like even if Zion is that guy, and if he's one of those special talents and that we know he is, you're still going to need the help around him to make sure that you're in the positions to compete. Because this West is getting tougher and tougher by the year, man. Like these teams are growing fast. There's less bad teams. There's less teams that want to tank. There's more teams that are trying to win and believe they should win, and they should. They're talented teams. They have good cultures and all that type of stuff. Now on the other end, we have the Lakers winning the playing game, so they'll be playing Denver in the first round. LeBron, yeah, which is such a gift. Play that hard fought game, and you get Denver. LeBron had a tough shooting night, but he found ways, as we know LeBron can, to impose his will on this game. He still ended up with a near triple-double, 23, 9-9, 3 steals, 2 blocks. He was running around. He was taking charges, like looking like Kyle Lowry out there, just taking charges for his team, doing whatever it kind of took to make sure his team was the one that got the W and didn't have to face another go into a single elimination game. D'Angelo Russell, of course, hit some timely baskets. Anthony Davis was his big monster self on the boards and did what he had to do. First thoughts of a Denver Lakers series. How do you see that one going?
I mean, long term, I see it going Denver's way.
Oh,
Lakers might steal a game or two. Like Anthony Davis is a big boy. He's gonna try and body up Jokic. It's not really gonna. If Jokic can't get to the net, he's just gonna pass his way into glory. So, I don't know if that's really gonna stop too much.
Yeah.
But like, we're talking LeBron here, and this is LeBron's magic, right? Like, he finds a way to win. He's he's older than me and taking charges. Is he older than me?
Yeah.
How old is LeBron now?
Let's say he's younger.
Oh,
Let's say
okay.
he's yeah.
Let's hope he's younger.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I wouldn't be out on a basketball court taking charges. Like
Like
my
that, laying
bones
his
can
neck.
take it. I'm not that kind of psychopath. That's that LeBron special
Taking it from
athletic
Zion at that.
magic. Yeah.
Like, it's not just taking it from any, it's taking charge from Zion. Like,
From 270-pound Zion.
yeah.
You know, so you want to be a great first round pick, you want to be a great first overall pick, you got to learn how to win games. And Zion nearly pulled it off. He's learning. Right? Anthony Edwards, I think, is going to learn this. Victor Wembanyama, I think, when they get a team around him, he understands this. But it's that Laker magic. Now, that said, Denver's going to win that series.
Yeah, I think it's no secret that this one
They
should
won't
be
play
wrapped
more
up.
than 6 games.
Yeah. If they play 6 games, I think I'll even be shocked.
I think it'll be 5, honestly.
Yeah, old gentleman, Joker has some gentleman manners, so yeah, it could be a gentleman sweep over there. Yeah, I think that would be. Yeah, I'm with you there. Like, I think Denver makes quick work of it. It's still crazy what LeBron has been able to do in his 30th year in the NBA, 21st year in the NBA. Just being at this level, still being the guy.
Somebody draft his kid and
watch.
steal LeBron, because you're gonna get still a hell of a player.
It's a top. He's still playing at like a top 10 level, which is just insane. So we have 2 more playing games. So as we record now, there is Golden State and Sacramento going on right now. Let's get into it. Let's get a quick prediction of it right now. Like, I won't tell you the score. I have it on my TV right now, but it's still first quarter, so anything can really happen. How do you feel about this game, Sacramento being at home for this against Golden State, a playoff rematch from last year?
I think this game, without finding yet the game tracker, I think this game says more about Golden State than it will about Sacramento. And the reason is, I think Golden State is really at a point where we need to define what this next era of Golden State is going to be. And are they still competitive? Are they still good enough to do something in this league? Or, like, to me, if you lose to Sacramento right now, it basically tells us that the Golden State of old is done. They're done.
Yeah.
And you need to readjust, whatever that is. Is that getting rid of Clay? Is that getting rid of Draymond? Is that, courting LeBron like they were doing a little bit earlier in the year? What do you do, right?
Yeah.
But if you win this game, it shows that you can probably remain on the path that you're on and just kind of add around the edges, start giving a little bit more give a little bit more responsibility to the young players, and see where you're going. So I think this game really means a lot more to Golden State than it does Sacramento. I think Sacramento is one of those teams where you're kind of okay to keep building year over year, right? See what you got, add a little bit, but you don't have to really yet strive for that big change. I think they're still a year or two away from having to define themselves in that way. Kind of like they're a year or two ago New Orleans.
Right. Pelicans is in that time now where, like, they got to make a break now and figure out what they want to do to take that next step. Yeah, Kings can still figure out, like, what pieces they're working with. What do we got with Keegan? Like, what do we got with, like, Sabonis and Keegan? What we got with these younger guys? I think I agree with that. Like, this is definitely like a huge game for the Warriors. Like, if they lose this, I think you're right. Like, this could be the last time we see those 3 on the court together. Which is when you're watching them do all these historical things all those years back, like, I guess almost a decade ago now. 2014. Yeah. Well, that's when they started their runs. 2015, their first championship, for about 9 years ago. You didn't really see an end. You never really see an end to these things, and to kind of see it out now is wild to see. But I kind of feel like either way, if they make it into the playoffs, I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening against OKC, because that's who they would end up playing. I think OKC, they've heard a lot. They've heard a lot about and we'll talk more about OKC a little bit later in our surprises section. But I think they've heard a lot from a lot of the outside media about, oh, they're just an easy walkover. They're one of the worst number one seeds and stuff like that. So I think they're going to take whoever they get in this first round very seriously, and I think we're going to see like them win in a convincing match fashion against whoever they face. I think they seem to have they seem to be the type of team that would have that type of chip on their shoulder to kind of prove people wrong.
To me, OKC is that young team, young player ready to step up, if you will, right? And I kind of if it's Golden State coming through, like OKC is going to show them that they're old. They're an old team. Like Steph's going to be running around chasing Shea all game long, all series long, and it's going to wear them out. And like they're going to realize, like, yeah, Steph can't. He can be in a marvelous offensive force, but you can't have him running around and being the only guy anymore.
Not at this stage. No.
Like they're gonna get into a track meet with whomever they play, and in my opinion, Golden State, Sacramento, even New Orleans, like, you don't want to get into a track meet with OKC right now.
Yeah, because once you get like Jalen Williams going on that end, and he starts barking and he starts getting into it, he starts getting intense. It's just it's a different beast. It just feeds into that team so much, because Shea's a little bit more the quieter assassin type of player. He gets to his spots. He's very methodical with the way he plays. But Jalen's kind of like this energetic burst of just like energy from the wing that could just ignite your team.
He's got that energy. He's strong and powerful. He's got that strong base. He can elevate and hit the shots. And then, like, you've got Chet there. Chet played 82 games. This kid is solid. Despite being skinny, he is solid and ready to play. And then, like, maybe the X factor is Josh Giddey. He got swept under the rug a lot this year for his misgivings, let's say. But like, the kid can play. The kid can dismantle an offense and a defense, and he can straight up play basketball. So I don't buy the, like, this is a weak number one seed. I think this is an earned number one seed. I think this is a team that is properly built and properly ascended. I think they're maybe a year or two ahead of schedule, but hey, they're here and they're ready to go.
Yeah, I take that, because you can't have to me, it's kind of hard to make it to have it both ways, where you're going to say it's the worst number one seed in such and such time, but also the West is almost as strong as it's ever been. So it's like, which one is it? But yeah, I think yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the Warriors, Kings, or Pelicans. They make it out of this play-in series, and they have to go against that OKC team, because they are not backing down from anyone. And I guess we can move over to the East for their playing game. So I've gone to talk a bit about the Heat against the Sixers quite a bit. I talked about it with Tony here earlier this week, talked about it with Jordan yesterday on Playbook Sports Podcast. So in that Sixers Heat matchup, Sixers will be at home. What are your thoughts, and who do you think takes that one?
I think this is the first time all year that we will see what the Heat team is. I think the Heat, more than any other team in the league, just wait for the playoffs. And I think they can just kick it into gear. And I'm actually really excited to see what they've got. Because to me, they're a bit of a mystery. I think Jimmy's going to absolutely show up. I know people are questioning that. And I think we kind of know what Philly is. And Embiid's looked really good since returning, but I still worry he's like
He's
not
still a little
quite
gimpy.
Embiid. Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
not quite there.
Yeah.
And he's gonna like he's got to contend with Bam. Like people be like, "Oh, Embiid's twice the player Bam is." Bam's gonna give him fits. He's gonna
He's gonna work.
annoy the heck out of Embiid the whole game, right?
Yeah.
Like Embiid's probably gonna put up a really nice line, but
Always
he
does.
he could probably put up a much better line against a different center. Like I think Philly is upset that they have to play Miami. At
Yeah.
least I would be if I was Philly. I think you wanted anybody but Miami.
Yeah. I kind of have the same sentiments. Like this, it doesn't really. Yeah, I feel good about the Heat. I feel good about what they can do in this type of game. My only worry is how they contain Maxi. I'm not too worried. I've seen how they've guarded Embiid in the past. They're gonna trap him. They're gonna double him. They're gonna make him a passer. He's gonna get his 25, 30 points. That's just what's gonna happen. He's gonna foul, get some free throws to establish himself. Um, but yeah, I like their outlook against him. See, we talked about Tyler Hero a bit. I know you're more of a Tyler Hero guy. I think he's been healthy. This is the first time. This is the first time he's been healthy for the postseason in a while.
I hope we get
So
snarling Tyler Hero
I
back.
want. I'm really interested to see what we get from him because he's been playing since he came back from his injury. Like it's only been like a couple of games, but he's been playing really well. Like he's established himself. He's taking the right shots on defense. He's looked a lot more not more engaged, but he's figuring out how to read defenses better and better throughout the year. Off ball, on ball, he's still gonna be the guy to pick on because you have to pick on somebody. And why not Tyler, right? So, but like what he's been doing, I think to see it on this level now will be interesting to see how that translates.
I think if you're probing with Tyler and Terry the whole game, you've actually got Tyrese Maxey having to do a little bit more on defense than he probably wants to do, to switch back and forth, use those two, and wear Maxey out defensively is going to be like, you know, how you deal with him.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Yeah.
you get him to play the defensive side of the ball more, um, and you might have something there, right? Like he's going to put up a great line, but is he going to make it all 4 quarters?
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point that you bring up. See, that's a point I haven't talked about with anybody in those last couple of podcasts is that making him work on the defensive end. This is why you're my co-host. You make him work on the defensive end. He have done that in the past with guys like when they played like Trey, when they played Jalen Brunson. They'll use a lot of off-ball screens. They'll get him into action. So just make him do extra work on the defensive end. Just so they have a little less in the tank for the offensive side of the offensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the
Maybe all
court.
you can do, right? You
Yeah.
know?
And we know, I think we just found like maybe a couple hours ago that Rozier's not going to be playing the game, but you're still gonna have Hero. It's a real shame. I want to see them all together, but you're still
Yeah.
gonna have Hero. You're still gonna have that type of movement, that type of play. Duncan Robinson will be back. He's gonna have to guard someone, a movement shooter of some sort. If it's not on the ball, it's gonna be off the ball. You're still gonna be able to put him in lots of actions and run him off screens and wear him down that way. I think that's an underrated point. It's one that I never really thought about. It's like that is one of the ways that you can slow him down on that end.
Yeah, that's just like when you have these great offensive players, right? You know, who tend to just focus on offense. Like to me, this is a good way to run them into the wall, if you will. Because like I think about like Dame over there in Milwaukee, right? Like Dame's not the greatest defender in the world, but he's still big shot Dame, right? Like
Mhm.
you don't want him to be feeling good at the end of the game. You want his legs to be heavy at the end of
Yeah.
the game because he's not going to elevate for the shot properly. And it's just
Yeah.
like you're talking about fractions here with like,
Yeah.
these are the best basketball players in the world,
Yeah, you're
right?
trying to get every little
They don't
advantage.
get
Yeah.
gassed that easy, right? You're
Yeah,
talking about minor percentages of like their ability to play, their ability to sustain their endurance and things like this. And yeah, I think with these great offensive talents, it's going to come down to the end of the game. Do they still have it at the end of the game. Because we just saw with this past game with the Lakers and New Orleans, like it was tied at the end of the game with like under a minute to go kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the Lakers were able to squeak out 2 possessions. And
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah.
Just 2
And that's
possessions.
all you have to do. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's all it takes to win a basketball game.
And if Zion
and-
didn't get hurt, it may have been 2 possessions the other way.
Exactly. Lakers dodge a bullet there, but then they get Denver. So I don't know. Did they really dodge a bullet? It's interesting to see. So the second game. Anything else on that series before we move on? You have Kyle Lowry, former Raptor, former Heat player.
He's gonna
get his little revenge.
Yeah. I kind of think Kyle's gonna have a good game. I just don't know if he's gonna have. I don't know if he's gonna have a game that tips the series in any way.
Yeah. I would agree there. He's an elderly, he's an older
he's
guy.
just kind of past that point of his career, right? Like you use him appropriately, you're gonna get something out of him. You're gonna get something positive out of him. But like, I also know Nick Nurse loves Kyle Lowry. Is he gonna lean on him too hard? That is possible. That is Nurse's style. He leans on his guys.
Coaches tend to, like, especially even when Lowry was over here, they just like what he brings, I think, on the court. They tend to play even when they're not producing. Yeah, they tend, even when he's not producing on the court, they tend to just fall back onto him as like a safety net type of thing. It'll be interesting. I have a feeling. I have this really gut feeling he's gonna hit one just clutch dagger 3. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but
rock up with a pull up 3. Yeah.
Just I could see it happening. I could see it already. So the second playing game is Atlanta Hawks versus Chicago Bulls. Trae Young is back, so we have DeJounte Murray and Trae Young in the backcourt again. They're looking more whole. Versus the Bulls. Bulls have been, in the mix the entire year, in that playing mix the entire year. Haven't been too exciting. You still have DeMar DeRozan hitting clutch shots all over the place, although he couldn't get one the other night. But more majority
still
of the
gonna
nights,
win clutch player of the year.
Yeah, he'll be right front runner for that one. So, what are your thoughts on that little series, that little game that's going to be on after the Philly Heat game?
So to me, when I was looking at the play-in games, in a way, I was shocked that it was like Atlanta and the Bulls, in that, like, I don't think either are very good teams.
It's such a drop off.
Like we're watching the West today, and it's like, all these teams are good, or like, have a history of being really good. The Lakers won the play on
switch.
Lakers won the play in or mid-season tournament game, the NBA Cup, and Golden State is the dynasty, right? And these are like the questionable teams, and then over here in the East we have the Bulls, which every article written all year has been, why didn't the Bulls blow it up? This team's going nowhere. And then you have Atlanta, which the articles all year have been, Atlanta's such a mess. They should have blown it up. They're going to blow it up this offseason. So it's really just kind of, it's just two teams that are just probably going to lose. They're going to lose to whomever they play next.
No, I agree with you. Like, I think both these two teams, which brings me to a different question, because I think just like you, these two teams will be kind of fodder for whoever loses that Philly Miami game. I'm going to bring up the standings real quick, but do you think there should be some sort of mechanism that should initiate the play-in to start, or do you think it should be just set in stone no matter what, the 9 and 10 get it, or should they be within a certain amount of games? Because right now, when you look at it, they're about, like, the Bulls are about 7 games behind the 8th seed at this point. Like, they weren't even like close to it. Do you think 7's close enough to trigger that?
I like that idea, because that was kind of the idea behind the plan, was that, like, those teams fighting at the fringes, trying for that last playoff spot, would get one more opportunity. The Bulls are so far back. They're closer to lottery, like,
they're closer
pick
Yeah.
than the playoffs, in my opinion. Like I was watching them all year, being like, okay, Bulls gonna get a high first round pick. Like, what's going on here? And they're playing in the play-in tournament. I don't mind that. Um, but it's something for the league to work out. It's kind of like should the mid-season tournament give you some sort of boost in your standing as well,
Yeah.
right? Like, should it automatically give you a playoff spot or
Yeah.
a couple extra wins, if you will, fake wins?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
bump your percentage
Um,
up.
yeah. Um, I think these are all good things to take a look at, good things to consider. Um, because at the end of the day, like, I don't think any sports league should be stagnant. I think they should always be looking at ways to improve their product. I think every company should always be looking at
Yeah.
ways to improve their product, right? Like Lucky Charms isn't sitting on it. Like they're adding new marshmallows
Yeah.
constantly. They're like, come
Yeah.
on, we can't just
Gotta
have
spice it up.
rainbows and horseshoes. We
Gotta,
got to have some like
gotta
sweet
have the Paw Patrol
clouds.
ones. Yeah, gotta have the
Yeah,
Paw
come
Patrol
on,
ones.
let's
Gotta mix it
go.
up. Yeah, you gotta mix it up.
Um,
I'm kind of in favor of that too, but like it makes it a little, it's a little tricky, the mechanism, how that would work and all that type of stuff. But the NBA Cup, I think they announced today that they're looking at involving, you get a guaranteed like tiebreaker. Like it'll be the first tiebreaker if you're in one with playoff seeding and that type of stuff. Is if you won the in-season tournament, the NBA Cup, then you automatically win whatever tiebreaker. I think that's what they're looking at right now, is a little incentive, season incentive. I think it's a
Yeah,
easy way
it's
to
a
kind of like
minor
sneak it
one,
in there.
but
Yeah,
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 it's a way to give you something, right? It's
yeah,
just,
yeah,
is it enough?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
always a question of, is it enough?
yeah,
Like, you don't want to go too far. You don't want like, oh, you win the NBA Cup, you're guaranteed a playoff spot, and then you just tank the rest of the year. You're like, just play the bench, right? We're
yeah, yeah,
fine,
yeah,
you know. But there's always something to look at, and it's one thing that I do admire the NBA for, is that they do try things like no other sports league is tried a mid-season tournament, and now I guarantee the NHL is looking at it. And if MLB wasn't so historic, I guarantee they'd look at it. The
yeah,
NFL
yeah,
is too
yeah.
short. It's
Yeah,
just
you
too
can't
short.
really.
Yeah.
NFL has it just how they need it right now. Like they just
Yeah,
have to tweak rules here and there. Yeah,
it's a pretty good product as far as schedule.
yeah.
Um, you honestly don't want them playing too much more. Everybody gets hurt in the
Yeah,
NFL.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a tough one, the NFL there. No, yeah, I think that trigger would be beneficial. I think it gives those teams there, like those Chicago Bulls, those Atlanta Hawks, even more incentive to be maybe just a little bit better throughout the year, because you got to be looking at, okay, are we going to even trigger this? Like this is another mark for us to kind of meet within our season. We're 5 games, we're 3 games behind triggering a playing tournament to even give ourselves a chance. But on the other hand, I see it as this too. It's like the competitive spirit that I still sometimes have. It's like, okay, if you're the 8, 7, and 8 seed, it shouldn't matter who the 9, 10 seed is anyway. You should be going to that game thinking, no, we deserve this spot. We're going to show why we deserve this spot. And even if they are so many games behind us, we're going to show why they weren't close to us in the first place. So I think there's that angle that they could always take into it too. It's like, we kind of look for bailouts for these teams, but at the end of the day, they're there. They can save themselves. They have these opportunities to still win their way in. It makes it a little tricky, maybe for your first seed, you want to know who you're playing a little sooner and stuff like that. But outside of that, I think it's okay if a team is just so happen to be peaking at the right time and they could sneak their way into the playoffs, even if their season might have been not so great. But on the other hand, on the flip side, I'll talk myself right back out of it, is if you have a guy that just gets injured near the end of the playing just before the playing starts to trigger, that's kind of unfortunate too. Like it kind of can go both ways. With Atlanta though, yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
Well, if your team's so dependent on one player, like, you're gonna make the play and still lose. Like that's, or at least you should. I know there's the any given Sunday side of sports, but like, if you just well, look at the Raptors. Like they lost Scotty Barnes and they won
Gone.
3 games after the the All-Star
His
break,
hand. Yeah. Oh
right?
wow.
Like
Yeah.
that was it. So yeah, like some teams are reliant too much on one player, but without that player, like I don't know, like are you even a good enough team to be in there, right? We always
Right.
talk about you need a guy to play with your guy, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, like you're just kind of putting a bad product on the court. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a tough one.
the team building would be a bit off, and the team building with the Hawks too. So I'm interested in this as well because without Trey Young, Dejounte Murray looked really good. Like he looked good. The engine looked like it was his. Everyone sort of knew their role. When they've been together, it's been a little bit more back and forth. They kind of haven't been able to really figure out that chemistry perfectly with those two guys there. I think they thought when they got DeJounte, you have a bigger guy to put next to Trey who can guard some of the guys that Trey can't guard and keep Trey a little bit off ball. But Trey still needs to have that ball in that hand, and it's kind of been hard to find that balance. If they were to bow out here in one of these two games, who would you be looking to move? I know it's a little early for offseason talk, but I can't help myself. Who would you be looking to move first? Would it be Trey or DeJounte? Because there's been a little bit more of the murmurs of they be willing to let go of either. DeJounte kind of played himself back into good favor with I know the coach and the organization in general.
So personally, I think DeJounte. I was calling him DeAndre all day. DeJounte. Apologies, DeJounte. DeJounte to me is more of a winning ball player. And if I was the Atlanta Hawks, he's the guy I would actually look to hold on to. Trey to me reminds me of the James Harden quote, "I am an offense."
Right.
And until Trey can learn to do what James Harden did this year, which is defer, fit into a system, change your game enough to play with other good players and actually elevate them and not just, score a bunch, pass to a bunch of shooters and get your easy assists so that your numbers look really good. Like people were talking about moving Trey to San Antonio to play with Victor, and it's like the last thing I would want as San Antonio is to bring in Trey. I don't want the ball out of Victor's hands. I want somebody to get Victor the ball, right? So like it comes down to who's more of a winning player, and right now in their careers, like Trey Young should be the guy. He should be the guy. But he hasn't proven that he can win. And that to me is like the big question. Like, and that to me is the question with like, I look at Phoenix and like Phoenix has kind of got themselves into a decent position. They're in the playoffs. Kevin Durant is a winning player. He's one of the great winning players. But is Devin Booker? Is Bradley Beal? Are these guys winners? They can put up numbers. They can put up great numbers. They can have amazing performances. But do they win? And not just like win a game or two here or there. Do they win championships? Can they elevate when needed? Like we saw LeBron today. LeBron was outplayed by Zion. They won that game. How? Why? We don't. It's kind of hard to say. It's kind of hard to quantify. But LeBron found a way to win that game.
Yeah, he didn't even shoot well, but he impacted that game in other ways and just made sure his
He
team
hit
was in
every free throw he took. He's 10 of 10 from the free throw line. And LeBron's not known to be the great free throw shooter, but yeah, he found a way.
Yeah, he's like, this is what the team needs. Yeah, and I think I'm kind of on that same wavelength when it comes to Trey versus DeJounte. Like me personally, I would rather build around DeJounte. I think he's easier to fit around other players. When you have Trey, you have to cater your whole entire team to his style. And I think even trying to move him, I think is going to be hard at this point because you've established him at this level for so long now that you've established him as this like all-star player. You've established him that he's going to be that all-star player with the ball in his hands. That it's kind of hard to kind of walk some of that back. I think the only way that happens is if he's put with another player who's so demanding, which is why you probably heard the Victor stuff. But I'm like you, would rather him not go there. I'd like more of a pass first. I'd even maybe even like a LaMelo more. So I know LaMelo needs the ball over his hands, but just the play style, the kick aheads and all that type of stuff that LaMelo likes to do, I think that fits a little more than Trey. Um, Trey's great for like a rim running big. He's great for like that type of style of basketball. So I guess you just have to look around for where that is.
If I'm Atlanta, I'm probably trying to trade Trey to the Nets for Mikal Bridges.
And
I
just
think
start building
that,
on him.
yeah, I think he would look good next to Jante and Jalen Johnson. And that gives you a really solid base to build off of. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
good
yeah.
two-way talent there.
Yeah, I think you have to start looking down that realm. Yeah, it's not too much more. Like even on the Bulls, like I think this is just a very uninspiring group over there, especially with the Levine stuff and Lonzo. You hope he comes back next year with, I don't know, if we'll see. But we can move on to some brighter news. I think our last our last segment here will be some of the biggest surprises we had this season. We didn't really get to do much of a wrap up because apologies, I was sick. So a lot of that stuff would have came last week, but we could still talk about some of the surprises we had this year. So would you like to start with any?
So the one for me is the Magic. Just as a team, the Magic. Where'd they finish exactly? Third,
Fifth.
fifth,
Yeah,
fifth.
yeah. They had a chance to
Um.
finish as high as second, or yeah, as high as fourth. Going into that last game, third. The
Okay.
last couple games, they're yeah,
They were in
they
the
had a really good
mix,
season. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and for a team that like isn't far out of the lottery a few seasons ago, like I
Falls
think
in
I
this.
think it was a really nice bump. It was a really nice story that kind of didn't get talked about as much. Maybe because OKC was such a large jump and
Right.
going all the way to number 1 was such a big deal.
Yeah.
But I really liked the Magic's year. I really like the Magic team. Um, I think there's a lot there. I think there's a lot of optionality come the off season. They've got a lot of talent, and they can look to see how they do this year in the playoffs, and they can look to see where they might need to improve, and who they can use to improve with, right? Like if you got to trade a couple of those guards, you certainly have guards to trade.
Yeah.
You're not going to move Paolo, you're not going to move Franz. Those guys are going to be there.
It's looking more and more like Suggs is one of your guys now. Like he seems like he's that one of
He's
those like
really
guys
played
that stick
himself into
around.
a nice spot, but
Yeah.
he might get you a nice return.
That's the trick. That's the trick, isn't it? I like, yeah, I think they've been a tremendous story too. I think Suggs in general, like I'll keep going back to it. And when I made that all defensive team list, like the most feedback I heard was like, why isn't Suggs here? And like, yeah, Magic have been one of the best defenses of this year. Suggs is a big part of that. I think their coach, when we had Tony on, he was talking about Jamal Mosley in general, just like what he's done for that team, and he's gotten the opportunity to grow with them, and he should be in the running for coach of the year. I know Mark Dagnall's the favorite, and he won the coach of the year, but by the coaches. But I think Jamal Mosley should be getting a lot of that love as well for what he's been able to put together with this team. Having them in such a strong position for majority of the year and never tailing off. They just always seemed ready for whatever matchup. The last game of the season they had to win to make sure they weren't in the play-in. And they had the Bucks. I know Bucks have been faltering a little bit, but they looked like seriously ready to compete for that game. They took that game very seriously, and you could even see the way that Jamal Mosley was on the sideline, like just the energy that he brought, the focus that he had, it just rubs right off onto his guys. And it's been, really underrated, but really heartwarming story to hear throughout the NBA. And just to add on to that, like even what Paul's been able to do this year, you mentioned them being in the lottery not too long ago. It was literally last year. He's a rookie. So they got the number 1 pick like a year ago and picked them. And now they're a playoff team. So it's an incredible turnaround that they've had. And certainly a surprise for me, as I thought Detroit would have been better than them this year.
That was going to be
Not.
my next surprise, was just how bad Detroit has been with
Yeah, so let's talk about it. Yeah.
Monty. There was a lot of talk like, oh, they got
With the Ivy
Monty.
pick.
They've paid him so much money. He's the highest paid coach, blah, blah, blah. I like Ivy a lot as a player. We share a birthday.
Oh.
Yeah. Um, just not the same year. Um, but yeah, I mean, like when we started this pod, you were asking like, hey, like what are you excited for this year? And I was like, I'm excited for Detroit. Like they've got talent. They're
Yeah.
gonna be fun. They were anything but fun. They were like that is a souffle that did not rise. Like I am impressed at how bad they were.
Yeah, it was quite a job because I even believe K played more games this year than he played last year, but they won less games, which is I would yeah. Um, that's just a rough scene. I know that at the end there they tanked away by like trading away some of their veteran guys to New York so they can, get their youth playing some more minutes, but it should never really come to that. I think with them, they had a strong outlook for me. Like I thought the culture that they're gonna put in there. I thought they had some good defensive acquisitions there. They have Jalen Duren, but he didn't really turn it on the defensive end. He was more of like just a double guy with defensive potential some flashes shown here and there, but didn't really get to string it together. He was also in and out of the lineup with injury. You have like James Wiseman over there. It's just a really mismatch of players that got to be together. You had Azar Thompson earlier on in the season that was looking promising on the defensive end. So I thought at the minimum we'd see a competitive defensive team. Kate has some good defensive chops. I thought Ivy does as well, but that seemed to never just come together with this team. And yeah, it's been a surprise and a frustrating surprise to see how their seasons ended up. And when you contrast it to a team, which I think I was also shocked about in a more positive light, is the Rockets. They kind of took that defensive identity that I thought some of the Magic might have been able to get when they brought in Ime, Van Vliet, Dylan Brooks, who the U.S. team has to put together this super team to beat over in Canada, just to beat Dylan Brooks. You got to assemble this super team according to Dylan Brooks. um,
You love the
but yeah,
irrational confidence.
oh, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Um, but I think the Rockets have shocked me in that. Even Sengun, like for a majority of the season, I think if he was able to play out the season, he would have been a MIP candidate, and a lot of that has to do with how he played on the defensive end. So I think one of my surprises here has to be what the Rockets were able to do. Gave the Warriors a scare there for that last playing spot.
Oh, absolutely. And like, at the beginning of the season, even though, Detroit was playing poorly, like they were talking like, oh, Asar Thompson was the Thompson twin you wanted. And then by the end of the year, it's Amon Thompson is the
Yeah,
Thompson twin you want. Right. I think both are good, and you probably want one of them, if
yeah.
not both of them. But yeah, the versatility, the fact that they had Amon playing center for a long time, I
It
was
just
just
speaks to
like,
what's going on over
I
there.
was like, this is wild. I love it. And he's
Yeah,
like showing out as a center. I'm like, the NBA is the most positionless it's ever been.
ever
And
been. Yeah, yeah.
I'm on
I'm
board.
here for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here for it. I think some other surprises. We talked about OKC earlier. But I think we still got to mention like just OKC. Their jump from last year. I think they were a playing team. They won one playing game, and then they lost the second one. This year they're the number one team in the NBA. I think out of that bunch, the two most shocking things would be how well Jalen Williams has been this year. I have him high on my
Absolute
MIP.
stud. Yeah.
Yeah, I have him high on my most improved list, if not the most improved player. And Chet playing 82 games. Like, who would have thought?
82 for Chet, who
Yeah.
got hurt.
0
In,
last year,
yeah, who
82
got
this year.
hurt in the preseason. And we're like, this kid's too skinny. He's not going to make it in the NBA. And for a moment, he was giving Victor a run for like
Yeah,
rookie of the
good
year.
chunk. Good chunk.
People have talked about him like this kid may be making some all defense teams in his future now, right? Like Chet's got it. He's certainly
Mhm.
got it, and he cares, and that's great to see. And it was
Yeah,
really fun to see him play 82 games.
yeah, yeah. I think that does justice. I think one last little one before we head out here. GG on Memphis. youngest player in the NBA, and he just been once all those guys went down, he took that opportunity and ran with it, and that's been a nice watch. His future looks bright. What we see next year with him next to Ja Bain and Jaren Jackson and Marcus Smart, how that's all going to come together. I'm intrigued to see how that looks next year, for sure.
My question is Jaren Jackson going to be the center next year, or are they going to bring somebody in?
I think
That's to me their offseason question.
Yeah, I think with the way that this year has gone for them, maybe this can be one of the surprising teams with how poorly this went for them. Like we knew Jaw was going to be out, but then he got the second injury and that hurts a lot. But or he gets the first injury, first time he was suspended, then he gets injured.
Yeah.
So that's a rough go at it. Bain gets hurt, so they weren't going to have a good year to begin with. But yeah, I think with how things went, Jaren Jackson isn't he's not a 5. Like he just doesn't play that. He doesn't want to play that way. He wants to be your 4. I think an intriguing option. I don't know how they get there. I don't know what trade would have to be made or what Claxton's contract status is, but if you're able to get a guy like Nick Claxton from Brooklyn, because I don't know what Brooklyn's going to end up doing this year, this offseason. They might as well be selling some stuff. So if you can get a guy like Nick Claxton to pair next to Jaren Jackson Jr., I think that's an interesting pairing that you can move forward with in the future, because Steven Adams might be toast with with his back injury, unfortunately. Or they moved
poor
him anyway.
guy. Yeah, they moved him.
Yeah. So yeah, the front court's going to need some help there, and I think a guy like Nick Claxton's something they should look at, because I think you figured out that he's a 4. I think you figured out that he doesn't want to bang. Like he can play 5 situationally, like maybe to close a game and stuff like that. You move him up to the 5, but I think for a long term, 82 games of a season, you're gonna have to find your solid 5.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel as well. Like, Jaren's just like, to me, he's one of those guys, a little bit like Anthony Davis, where it's like you're such an in-between power forward and center player, and the league getting smaller and smaller and faster wants to make those guys centers, but those guys tend not to want to be centers, like you said there. And if you can find him the appropriate center, then yeah, moving back to the 4, you're going to have a happier player. You're going to have a more hopefully conducive front court, and it can work out. And I think Claxton would be a good fit. I think maybe like a Jakob Poeltl, you could probably get him. Raptors aren't married to Jakob, but he's a good functional center. Play makes a lot, so he's an unselfish center in that way. There's some guys out there,
that you can go and look with. I think for sure. And last thing before we head out here, biggest surprise on the Raptors. I'll give one for the Heat before we head out.
Biggest surprise on the Raptors, I'm gonna go with RJ Barrett.
That's a good one. Yeah.
RJ Barrett came over in the trade, in the OG Anunoby trade. Maybe the biggest surprise is the fact that they actually traded like OG and Siakam. But I'm gonna go with RJ Barrett because there was a lot of talk when he came over that he was salary filler, that he's promise unfulfilled, and sometimes national writers tell on themselves that they don't always watch every team equally. RJ Barrett has been the best version of himself since coming to the Raptors. He has been closer to the Team Canada version of RJ Barrett. If you ever watch international ball, he plays a little differently on Team Canada, and he's played that way for the Raptors. And it's I guess a lot's going to depend on next year whether or not he truly is this guy. But he's basically improved his efficiencies in every metric since coming to the Raptors. It's really nice to see. You always like to see a guy succeed. As a Canadian, I like to be mapley, and I like to see my Canadian boys succeed as well. I was excited when they got him, and I've been pleased with his performances.
No, he's been great this year. Like especially on the Raptors. Like I think from every last time I checked, I think from every zone he was like much more efficient, as you mentioned. His playmaking out of those spots looked much better. Like he seemed to embrace being a Raptor, and it helped him so much coming out of New York. I think there's a lot of push and pull with Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, like who's the true leader of the team. I think RJ is really fighting for that a lot of the time. I think that was tough for him to manage for a lot of the year, and on the Raptors, he didn't have to deal with that. Scotty's naturally more of a passive player. He doesn't mind deferring a bit, and RJ is more than happy to take the reins when he needs to. But he was also willing to let Scotty be Scotty in some of those fourth quarters when they were playing together before the injury. So, yeah, I think I think that's a very big, pleasant surprise as RJ's turnaround. I think for the Heat, who I'd have to pick, I think if you asked me this like halfway through the year, I would have said Hami, like no doubt Hami. But I think when I look back
Great
at it,
18 pick. Yeah, great
yeah,
pick at 18. Yeah.
yeah, and I think when I look back on it, I remember when they drafted him and looking at his highlights and looking at what he can do. Everything that he was able to do in college, he translated into NBA right now. So I think he wasn't as surprising from what he can do on the court, but maybe his production and how quickly he adapted. But for me, I think it's Nikola Jovic. Um, I think him becoming the starting four of this team is big for the Heat in the future. Like if that pairing truly can work, and we'll see tomorrow against like an official team whether or not that's going to be what it is. Like if this can work in like high leverage games. But we're gonna see that tomorrow. His defense, he was unplayable on the defensive end to start the year. Throughout the year, he got better and better and better. And by the end of it, he's holding his own. And they're even allowing him to guard some guys one-on-one. And he doesn't look lost. Like, he doesn't look lost at all. It looks comfortable. It looks like this is what he could be doing. The shot has gone a little bit more consistent. We know he can play make. He's comfortable with the ball in his hands, but doing some of the big stuff, like being that rebounder, being that last line of defense. I think seeing those stuff improve throughout the year has been impressive for me, and probably one of my biggest shocks. Because I was notably not down on him, but I wasn't as optimistic that he would be a contributor this early in his career. He seemed very raw, but being a contributor now has been impressive, and I think that would be my biggest shock for the Heat.
I like it. I thought you were gonna say Duncan Robinson. I think when I read a lot of like international news, not international, national writers, they're big on Duncan Robinson.
We're in Canada, it's kind of international.
Yeah, it's true. But like a lot of the national writers, they jumped onto the Duncan Robinson story early and they just wrote it. They wrote it all year. He's been great. He's been excellent as well. He's turned his game around, and but I like the Jovic pick there. Because we talked about Jovic earlier in this season, and to me the thing was always like how Heat fans were putting him in trades and being like, this guy's a guy, like he's a guy, and the rest of us being like, is he? Is he? And now y'all were right. Jovic is a guy.
Yeah, he's for sure. Now we can say he is a rotational player in the NBA, and we didn't know that to start the NBA season.
Yeah, he was raw to begin the to begin the year. Right.
Yeah. So we know he's there now. So that's great to see. I think that'll do it for this episode of the NBA Hangout. Anything else before we get out of here?
I just hope Zion's okay.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. That's my big basketball thing of the day. Is just like, ooh, I hope he's okay, because I really like bouncy Zion. I like athletic Zion. I like chip on his shoulder Zion. I like
fierce,
the Zion we got this year. I want to see more of it, and to see more of it, he just has to be healthy.
Yeah. Oh, and shout out to Vince Carter into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Vince. It's over.
I
love him. And AI getting his statue.
Oh, and AI getting his little statue. I mean, his statue.
Oh. All the statues at the practice facility are little.
Yeah, they're
all
not
a comment on his stature.
Sorry, guys. Only the Rocky one gets to be big. It's Philly. Come on. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. This is episode, what is it, 25 of the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. You can follow us at the NBA Hangout. You can follow me at BJAY93_, and you can follow Dave here every week. Thank y'all. Peace.